Hello and welcome to the big picture. As the NDA government celebrates its 2 years in office, we at the big picture here have been looking at various aspects of governance in the last few days. In this last of the series, we will today look at the political aspect of it. In these 2 years, what has been the nature of politics in this country? How has the BJP, which leads the NDA government, done after the spectacular victory in 2014? The BJP leaders talks of a Congress Mukt Bharat. To what extent have they been able to inflict serious blows on the Congress? Is Congress going through its worst phase in its post-independent history? And to what extent is the BJP responsible for this? How have the regional parties fared in these 2 years? And how has the BJP fared in relation to these parties? How does the future look at this point of time for all these parties? We will look at all this today with Professor Zoya Hasan, Emeritus Professor at the JNU and a political scientist and author, Monu Nalapat, political analyst and journalist, Professor Subrata Mukherjee, former Professor of Political Science at the Delhi University and a political analyst, Vinod Sharma, political editor, Hindustan Times, and Vandita Mishra, national opinion editor at the Indian Express. Welcome to all of you. Zoya, when you look at these last 2 years, when we are talking of the political situation in this country, what is it that is, comes primarily to your mind?
Well, 2 or 3 things. One, of course, it's after a very long time that we have a government with an absolute majority. So that has certainly provided a certain political stability to the system. But at the same time, the stability to some extent has been qualified by the fact that the BJP does not have a majority in the Rajya Sabha. Now that has obviously created many situations of conflict, confrontation, and it has given rise to, at least at the parliamentary level, to a very adversarial kind of politics. And I think one thing which BJP still hasn't managed to do is to realize that it is a party of government now and not just a party of elections and campaign. And the two are very different. And it seems to still work best and is most effective when it is in campaign mode. But at the same time, I mean, the big promise of Narendra Modi in the 2014 election was governance, was development. And I think as far as governance is concerned, I mean, there is frankly no discussion of governance reforms or the kinds of political reforms that are needed. And I think no effort has been made by the BJP with the kind of majority that it enjoys to actually sort of walk across to the aisle, so to speak, and forge a consensus. And that's part of the reason why the GST, which was one of their big promises, hasn't come through.
Okay. And I think we'll let that parliamentary aspect of it aside. Mr. Nalapat, one of the aspects which Zoya spoke about and which we've constantly discussed also is about the adversarial nature of the politics which has come about. You think this is one of the most adversarial period in politics we have witnessed in the last several decades?
Well, actually, I think some the responsibility of that also lies with the party organization, the BJP party organization. I think the organization got very intoxicated with 2014 with the verdict. And then, I mean, I've studied Narendra Modi in Gujarat. Now, he has, in my view, a 10-year span and possibly a 15-year span of governance, not even a 5-year span. I think the BJP organizational head decided that it's going to be a 10-month situation. And in 10 months, we're going to capture the whole country, building on 2014. So they deliberately set about, quite frankly, trying to create a situation where they could replicate what the Congress was in the Nehru period. Now, I mean, every condition is right. That could take place maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 years later, but not in 10 months or even in 2 years or even in 4 years. So I think a large part of the responsibility lies with the fact that of the over-ambition of the BJP and the way they compressed the time in such a way that in a short period, they wanted to grab control of as many state governments as possible.
And you think that has led to the adversarial nature of the politics?
Well,
and the Prime Minister, doesn't have should not share any of the blame for this?
Well, I'd like to say that, all this talk about Narendra Modi as a micromanager, I said, I've studied him in Gujarat, and my assessment of him in Gujarat is, if he trusts a person, he gives a very long rope to that person, and he allows that person to function. Of course, if the person functions badly, then he steps into the act. But otherwise, he's not a micromanager, and I think he's given a very long rope to the BJP and to the organization leaders of the BJP, led by Mr. Amit Shah.
Okay, that's a very interesting aspect of what you said. Professor Mukherjee, how do you look at this? Is it what Mr. Nalapat is talking about, the over ambition of the BJP vis-a-vis a completely different way of looking at it as far as the Prime Minister is concerned, according to Mr. Nalapat?
Well, you see, there is an endemic problem in Indian democracy, is that the minority parties have majority in parliament. And that creates an imbalance between the electorate, the aspirations, and the governance. Now, what has happened in this case of Modi's government, I think they began on a right note, especially in the context of the cooperative federalism and 42% of the taxes, going to the state with the rider, and that I think was a very important one, that they can spend according to will and their needs. And India being what it is, that I think was a very important formulation, because one size does not fit all. Actually, one of the criticisms of GST, I think subsequently, will be that what is the hurry in implementing it. But now looking to the contradictions, first there is a contradiction which Madhulime pointed out in the Janata period. Remember the dual membership issue, and that continues to haunt BJP and the Sangh relationship. And that's a very uneasy one. Their agenda is different. If you are governing India, you are to be catch-all party. You are to be some kind of a power-sharing arrangement, because a constitutional democracy is the order of the day. But BJP has not moved in that direction. And apart from the actions in Arunachal and Uttarakhand, betrayed much of this cooperative federalism. So I think, it's not only the government is in a hurry, they have not been able to fix the priorities. For instance, 40 schemes they have announced. But if you really look to the people, only talk about 5 and 6 of them. Bulk of the others, what are they, people do not know. Similarly, in the foreign policy, there is also a brinkmanship.
Sir, we will leave that aside. We'll leave the foreign policy issue aside. But you made some important points. Vinod, adversarial politics.
Well, that's the nature of the beast called politics, and this is not something.
But my question is, has it been more adversarial in recent decades at least?
You see, what you saw in the second half of UPA too, actually from the very start of the UPA regime, the BJP strategy was to show the UPA as dysfunctional, and they in the chain they identified certain people whom they thought were the weak links in the chain and made quit if they were under tremendous attack. In the UPA one, it was Manmohan Singh and Somnath.
The beginning of UPA one, Vinod, was a different ball game, because the NDA, which had lost power, did not come to terms with losing power for quite some time. It was a completely different kind of situation.
You see, their strategy, as I was trying to explain to you, was from day one to show the UPA as dysfunctional in Parliament. And that was a tactics which has been inherited by the current opposition from the past opposition, which is now in the government. And the effort is to show this government as dysfunctional on the part of the opposition. Insofar as the ruling dispensation is concerned, I would have expected that Prime Minister Modi, after having secured the kind of majority that he did, his own party had 282, and together with the allies, which is much more, that his own party had a clear majority in the lower house, which was significant and which was quite historic given the long spell of the coalition governance that we had in this country. He could have taken a position which was in consonance with the two words that he uttered. As the professor pointed out, cooperative federalism, and the other word was Team India, which they gelled very well, the two expressions. But we saw nothing of that by way of active action on the ground. Of course, there was 356 sought to be invoked. Now, this happening from a party which used to, until some years back, quote the Sarkaria Commission as virtually a Bible, a Gita, as you know, something which laid down the broad principles of cooperative federalism, or federalism, not cooperative federalism. Cooperative federalism was a step better than the federalism sought. Now, that did not happen. And I think that, you know, the basic problem between the opposition of the day and the ruling party of the day is lack of trust. In fact, there is deep distrust. Whole lot of things have happened. It would not be appropriate for me to mention those things here. But all of us know that there has been an extra effort on the part of the government to show the opposition, especially the principal opposition, which is the Congress, as corrupt, and you know, and it's their job also. I mean, if they have engaged in something you know, objectionable, they should be exposed. But the manner in which it is being done, and day in and day out, it happens in Parliament during the Parliament session, and it happens when Parliament is not in session. So the whole concept of the two sides preparing, debating and passing legislation is a casualty. You know, and the legislation which have been passed under duress, and also on account of the fact that they were inherited from the previous regime by the current regime.
So, no, but what you're trying to say, what all of you are trying to say is that there is, you know, one, lack of trust or distrust, and also an adversarial relationship which has come in the way of functioning.
Show the government of the day as dysfunctional. It is a political tactics we saw getting involved during UPA 1 and 2 both.
Vandita, how would you look at this? How do you look at these last 2 years in power? And especially, you know, in the context of let me finish. In the context of what BJP keeps repeating of having a Congress Mukt Bharat.
I think this adversarial politics that we are all talking of stems from a contrived sense of being under siege. The BJP assiduously nurtures a self-image of a party under siege. You know, when the nationalism controversy with regard to JNU sprang up, I remember I had travelled to UP among BJP office bearers in that state, and the general sense that one got was that, you know, we've been kept outside of the gates of institutions like JNU, dominated by left or the so-called secular formations, and now is our time to strike back. So this sense of siege that the party nurtures is also reflected in the kind of political strategy, for instance, in Gujarat, where the BJP's success has been largely built on instilling a sense of insecurity and fear in the overwhelming majority of that state, which is the Hindus, against the Muslims. So there is a sense of siege, which is also again compounded by Narendra Modi's personal history of, you know, 2002, the baggage that he brings with him from Gujarat. And that is what the BJP has not been able to grow out of. As a governing party, it needs to recognize that it has actually been hugely successful in terms of shifting the center of gravity of the whole national discourse more to the right than it has been in the past. Yet, I don't think the BJP is able to recognize and acknowledge its own successes and to let that calm it down and function as a party of governance.
Okay, I think that's a very interesting point you made, Mr. Nalapat. Would you like to respond to that?
Well,
would you agree with what she says?
You know, I respect the analysis behind, but I just want to point out, for 10 years, when Narendra Modi was Chief Minister of Gujarat, the government of India was run by Sonia Gandhi and Manmohan Singh. I don't think anybody will argue that Sonia Gandhi or Manmohan Singh are friends of Mr. Modi. In 10 years, they were not able to find a bit of evidence against him to even file a case against him. So there have been multiple riots in this country, and I would like to confess that I am a complete secularist. I believe very strongly in secularism. I believe very strongly in communal harmony. But in that kind of a context, I think this 2002 stick that is being used to beat Mr. Modi, legally, after 10 years of intense effort, if nothing has been found about him, I'm not sure there was anything to find.
No, that's not the point. The point is that she's talking about a party which thinks that it's under a siege. It's not just the Gujarat 2002, it's a whole lot of other things.
Well-
and now they're trying to, that insecurity is showing in a different way that what Vandita is talking about.
I agree with her on that point. For example, JNU, I regard JNU as a foolish mistake on the part of the BJP, going after those students, arresting them, making a hero of Kanhaiya Kumar and the other people who are involved. In the case of the Hyderabad incidents, the Vice Chancellor and subsequently the other authorities, they bungled it very totally. So I quite agree with you that there is frankly a lot of problems that are being created by this effort of the BJP organization to try and become as strong as the Nehruvian Congress was in the current term of Prime Minister Modi. I would put the root at the over-ambition of the BJP organization and its lack of an organic sense and a tactical sense of the path that is possible, and it's possible only over the longer term for that kind of a result.
Zoya, that's again it's interesting. Now let's come to the aspect of we leave these issues aside. How much has BJP been successful in marginalizing the Congress? Because that whole Congress Mukt Bharat kind of thing, and they have been in the context of how many states Congress has lost and what is the state of what is the situation now. So you think at least as far as that is concerned, BJP has been successful?
I think the point that Vandita was making is important, that BJP has been hugely successful, most importantly in really shifting the center of gravity of Indian politics,
and
which was largely left of center and centrist to the right. And it has changed the public discourse. It has, number three, as far as its overall ambition and strategy of working towards a Congress-free India, I think the Congress's own contribution to making India Congress-free is not to be underestimated. Certainly, the BJP is working on that, and it has been successful. But I think it may well have reached a point where it is going to peak, because you see, BJP when it is in competition with the Congress certainly is successful. But I think it has now reduced Congress to a level where, I mean, Congress can't get any worse. I mean, it is already down to 44 seats. It has only one major state, that is Karnataka, and 6 small states in its kitty. So you can't, I mean,
it can't get any worse.
It can't get any worse.
Okay, Professor Mukherjee, how do you look at this? The Congress versus the BJP.
Well, Congress Mukt Bharat is a bad slogan. You see, because there are a couple of reasons for it. The liberals may die out, but then the Labour Party comes. There is an opposition space is democracy, and the fundamental principle of democracy is to build a consensus along with the opposition, because opposition is also a part of the government. That's why it's Her Majesty's opposition. Now, the point that I like to make is that 2014 was an unnatural election, and that the optimality that the BJP could reach, and which is not likely to be repeated again. So I think instead of expansion, the BJP policy should be, how do I tackle the decline in a systematic manner, and we should be relevant in the context of more alliance. The failure of BJP lies that unlike Nehru, BJP has not been able to build a Congress system. And again, I like to point out that...
What is this Congress system?
The Congress system was an umbrella party. You see, in a country like ours, that power sharing arrangement, the factions within the Congress are well known. Followers of Nehru, followers of Patel. In the CPM, there is a Kerala line, there is a Bengal line. So unless and until a party is an umbrella party, it really cannot survive for very long. But apart from that, I think that siege mentality, I think it also comes from a background that we never could institutionalize, you see, just meritocracy and just reward in our system. So if you really look to the appointments, since independence, there is a sharp decline in the universities, because the universities are known by faculty and majority of the appointments are very suspect. So there are two sides to it, as it always happens. But again, I think instead of the siege mentality, they should have tried to establish a situation of just meritocracy.
Okay. Yes.
The interesting thing I think about the BJP is this combination of a rather deliberate cultivation of victimhood and at the same time this urge for dominance. I think it is that combination of victimhood and dominance which I think has created the kind of politics that we are facing. And to that we must add the personality of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister himself seems to, and people around him seem to think that he has been victimized and that he's been an outsider and that the Indian elite has not accepted him. If you watch some of Finance Minister Arun Jaitley's interviews of the last few days, I mean, a constant refrain is that there are just so many people who are unhappy with the fact that somebody from the kind of background that Narendra Modi comes from has become the Prime Minister. I don't think that is really the issue. The issue is what the BJP stands for. The issue is what Mr. Narendra Modi stands for, and they stand for a right-wing politics. And it is a party which is, after all, backed by the RSS. We are discussing the BJP without taking into account that this is the first government where you actually have a party which is backed by a non-party organization. I mean, BJP made so much about dual centers of power when the UPA was in power. But what about the situation now?
Right. Vinod?
I don't think it's a siege mentality. They are retributive. You know, Congress Mukt Bharat means what? You can smell revenge. No, please listen to me. Yes. You can smell revenge there. You know, it's very easy to call, they could have been more creative and said BJP Yukt Bharat, and which would have been so much the better. Now today, yes, of course, there has been a right-wing swing, especially amongst the very articulate middle classes of this country. I don't see any right-wing swing in the countryside as much as it is in the cities. And that is largely on account of what? You see, it's largely on account of the fact that the states which posed a security challenge to the state of India, from where they orchestrated the entire campaign, this right-wing campaign. Now, this right-wing campaign is not just, it doesn't have to it merely an economic dimension. It has to it a very serious military, security and social dimension. And in all these states, the BJP is in power today. Mind you, BJP is in power in Punjab. BJP is in power in Jammu and Kashmir. It's in power in Assam. It's in power in Rajasthan, from where counterfeit currency comes. It's in power in Arunachal Pradesh. Now, the biggest challenge of the BJP is now to prove its worth, that whether it rightly or wrongly injected that sense of fear in the people of India towards an enemy which was within, you know. I mean, I'm sorry, I mean, one has to be very blunt about it, the Muslim community. Now, this kind of politics does not indicate any siege mentality. This kind of politics indicates that these three forces, BJP, the government today, there's a BJP and there's the RSS. Professor Hasan is right that every single appointment to the governor's office has been by the RSS. Okay. Every single intervention in educational institutions is led by the RSS or prompted by the RSS. So we are talking about not about one entity, which we are talking about two or three entities.
Absolutely.
Okay, would you like to react to that?
Absolutely.
These are interesting points which have been made. How would you react to that?
Well,
How do you think the RSS would react to this?
Well, I have no idea how the RSS would react to it, but in my view, the so-called influence of the RSS on the government is a bit overblown. And may I point out the BJP, for example, we are talking in terms of the Kerala faction and the Bengal faction. You have a Jaitley faction and a Swami faction in the BJP as well.
And both of them are that's constantly... no comparison. There is no comparison.
No,
Swami may have been brought in. I mean, let's not get into that.
Let's not discuss that.
No, I would only like to make the point that this effort, frankly, to put the BJP into a separate box as an entirely different kind of political party, which really does not belong in the democratic mainstream, I think that is a self-fulfilling or even a self-defeating
I don't think anybody is trying to keep BJP out of a democratic mainstream, but it is the mainstream party today. Vandita, as far as the Congress is concerned,
yeah,
where is it heading? And also the regional, very important is the regional parties vis-a-vis the BJP. What we saw in Bihar, what we may see in Uttar Pradesh, where BJP will be fighting the regional party more than any other parties. In the context of the regional parties' growth in ADMK, in Tamil Nadu, in Orissa, so where does BJP stand there?
First of all, I'd just like to clarify, when I said that the BJP is a party under siege, I did not mean the BJP is under siege. It is a cultivated and contrived self-image. This is what it wants to be seen as, and this is how it sees itself.
Correct.
That is it's a projected image. To your question about the Congress and the contest between the BJP and the regional party, I think today's photo op at Mamata Banerjee's swearing in Calcutta gives us more of a glimpse into opposition politics than the Congress or the left. The Congress and the left were not there. So what we saw was on the front row, we saw Nitish Kumar, we saw Akhilesh Yadav, we saw Arvind Kejriwal. I think the vigor in the opposition politics is going to come from regional forces, because the Congress does not seem like it is able to pull itself up with its bootstraps and to get going. It's not visible right now. So there will be many contradictions within the regional parties. I know for a fact, for instance, that Nitish Kumar sees the anti-BJP formation that he's trying to cobble together at the center. He sees the Congress and the left as vital to the center, to the core of that kind of front. So it's not as if the Congress and the center left are going to melt away, but the energy and the driving force will come from the regional parties. Though, as I said, there will be contradictions there. Mulayam and Mayawati will not sup together, nor will Jayalalita and Karunanidhi, or the left and the Trinamool. But whatever kind of realignment happens, I think it is the regional parties that we must watch.
Okay. Would you like to?
Well, I want to say that I want to agree with her, and I want to say that it will be very healthy if that were to happen. The problem we have had in this country for so many decades is an over-centralization in Delhi. Practically every important decision which affects a state has to be taken in Delhi, whether it's a power plant or a large industrial unit or even an educational institution. And almost, whether it's the MHRD or whether it's so many other ministries, there's too much of control. Now, Narendra Modi has been the Chief Minister for 12 years. My hope is that in year 3 and year 4 of his administration, you will see a systematic devolution of power to the state and beyond that. You've already seen that in fiscal terms. We should now see that in terms of policy formulation as well.
In political terms, Professor Mukherjee.
Well, you see what is happening, this right swing to politics and regional parties. Now, right swing became inevitable after 1990 from a command economy when we moved towards a demand economy.
Right.
But that did not mean that there should be a right wing kind of a formation that is ruling India today. That is our inadequacy, because the mainstream political parties could not change to the extent desirable and essential. The second point is, there was a man called Saifuddin Chaudhary. In the 1990s, he proposed a very exciting thesis. He said a weaker Congress and the other parties can align, and I think that's what we would like to see. We cannot write off Congress.
Sir, we are running out of time. Saifuddin Chaudhary, something which all of us remember. Vinod, very quick last words.
Yeah, last words as follows. I think that to say that it's Congress Mukt Bharat is, I don't believe in that. I don't think that any political party or any political leader can be so easily wished away. I've seen Mr. Vajpayee in '84. I've seen Mr. Chandrababu Naidu in 2004. These people were down and out at that time, and they bounced back. What they require is a good issue, and to stay on with that issue. Okay. I think that in 2017 and 2018 there could be an alteration of the picture that we are seeing today.
Okay.
And 2017, certain states are going to election where there could be a good contest. And 2018, the states where 15 years BJP has in power, especially Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh.
Okay, I think on that.
Girish, this Congress Mukt Bharat is not just about getting rid of the Congress. It's also getting rid of certain ideas of politics that the Congress stands for.
That's right.
And those ideas of politics have to do...
Ideas don't go away
so BJP's first intent was Communist Mukt Bharat.
Anyway,
the first target was the communists.
That has not happened. Kerala, the communists have come back. So anyway, these are all very interesting times. We'll wait and watch what will happen in the next year. I'm sure Vinod was talking about 2017, 2018. These are all important years, and what will happen then, we will certainly be back and we'll be discussing that. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue, the big picture, same time on Monday. Meanwhile, have a great weekend.